Hi guys, welcome back to the Drive Life channel. In today's video we're going to be showing you a whole raft of hidden and useful features on the Kia EV3 and also EV9, EV6, etc. the new generation of Kia EVs. Now we've had our car for 2 months now, with 2,500 miles in it, and there's a lot of things that I've discovered that have made life just so much easier. So we're going to go through all those in today's video. Okay, so the first one, and I think perhaps the most important one, one of the most annoying things about this car is all the safety kits on it, especially the speed limit warning. Now, a lot of the salesmen didn't know this at the time, but when we bought this car, we found out that you can actually press and hold the mute button, and now we get a nice little message on the thing saying speed limit warning is now off, and that makes life so much easier. Before, what they were telling people you had to do was program it to a button, and then that would take you to the right menu, and then you have to go in and change it. It's not true. You can get rid of it straight away. And another one you can get rid of straight away is the lane assist, just by pressing and holding it. That will then turn yellow. That means it's deactivated. You can still use your active steering. That's independent of the lane assist, which is quite nice and easy. So the next awesome little feature that we found is quite useful. When you're just sat here with the ignition on, it's actually running off the 12-volt battery, not the traction battery. However, if you swipe down from the top here, you can activate utility mode, which is just here. Now what's happening is the car is using the traction battery, the big battery, to run everything. So you could actually stay in this car, camp overnight, that sort of thing, and it will look after you nicely. I think you can press and hold, and you can move these around as well, which is quite cool. But we've just, and just another top tip, you'll notice that our screen isn't beeping every time we touch it. We've turned beep off. That makes a huge difference. It's much more pleasant to use. Next up, we've got a nice little heat feature that Kia actually added in after these cars initially came out in a firmware update. Does the same on the Kia EV9 as well, but you can actually press and hold these map lights to dim them. So if you press and hold, they actually get brighter and they can get dimmer as well. So that's a nice little feature. Little things, you know, little things just make a big difference in this car. Next up, we've got another little feature on the infotainment system. Now, these are in a funny order to start with. There's certain things that you won't use if you don't have certain features. For example, the entertainment package, I've got to pay an extra £10 a month to use that. So rather than have that on my home screen, I've moved it. And what you need to do is press and hold, and you can just drag them and they'll scroll across. So I actually used car wash mode for the first time yesterday, which was quite cool. So you just drag them and move them. Like who looks at sport in their car? You don't need that. So you can drag them, move them around just like you would on an iPhone or an Android phone, and it means you can really customize what you want. I can even do it on these. Yeah, you can do it on these, so you can move that and swap it with the map. So the map's in the middle. Move EV over if you wanted to. Actually, that's quite nice. I quite like that with the map there. But yeah, you can play around with it and move it to your heart's content, and it'll really make your life easier. Now, another nice thing that comes on these Kias is the fact you've got these favourite buttons here. So we've got a little star here, and we've also got one on the steering wheel just here. Now, the standard way that most people map them or choose what they want is to go into settings and set them that way. What you can actually do is if you long press and hold, you'll get a little buzz and you can go straight in and change them straight away. So that's handy. It works on the other one as well. So if we press and hold a star button, that then does it specifically on that one as well. So that's a nice little feature. Just makes it easy, and it actually makes it easier to change it on the fly, which I've done a few times. I've got one set to Apple CarPlay, so just go straight back to Apple CarPlay, and then this one is set to my disabling this, because this will drive you mad if you wear glasses or you happen to check your mirrors. It tells you off. So that's a handy little thing to set it to. But yeah, it's just worth knowing that you can actually press and hold these, and it's dead easy. Another nice little thing that you can do is you can set the air conditioning to be driver only, which is quite nice. So that will turn off the passenger, reducing the overall draw on the battery. And then A lot of people complained about this screen, the fact that it's blocked by the steering wheel, which it is for the most part, but what you can do is you press that, you'll then get all the settings on the screen here as well, and you can actually control the rear as well, rear seat heating, that sort of thing, which is quite nice, which you can also control through Hey Kia, which we'll go into now. The next feature is quite a useful one, something that I actually use a surprising amount of time. Now Kia, this was a big thing that they promoted when they brought this generation of car out, and that was the use of the Kia voice recognition system with an AI assistant. Now what you need to do is you need to go on, it's not actually set up automatically, so you need to go on to setup, voice recognition, activate that. I won't say it because it will keep activating, and then you'll need to repeat a couple of phrases, and it'll ask you to do stuff. That sort. It'll ask you to say certain things to map your voice. But it's very handy because you can control all sorts of bits and pieces on the car. So if I say "Hey Kia," typically it's not going to do it. "Hey Kia, open the sunroof."
Opening the sunroof.
You can control pretty much every feature on the car. There we go, the sunroof is now open. Now Mr. Dale has handed me the camera here because this is one for the mirrors, and just going over the general sort of quick easy mirror controls. Obviously you've got the folding mechanism there, that's nice and handy, but if you were to start the car, put it in reverse, and you know, sometimes it's quite nice to dip a mirror or two when you are reversing to see a curb. You can actually do that by just pushing one of the sides down, and you'll see that the mirror drops to show you the curb. It's done the same on that side as well, and to turn that off, all you need to do is then just put it back to the centre again. Now it's a different mode, so you can actually set, using the mirror control settings here, where you want that mirror to point when you go into the reverse mode, so that's quite handy. Just a nice little useful feature that makes reversing up to a curb much better. Next up, we've got a relatively new feature, Smart Regen Plus and the Auto Regen setting. So in order to activate it, all you need to do is press and hold the right paddle with the A on, and you'll see that it will change to auto here. Now, Smart Regen Plus came out a month or two ago, and you can download it from the Kia store to the car. And what it will do is it will use GPS data, the radar sensors, to judge what sort of regen you need. So for the majority of the time, it's on either 1 or 0, and it allows you to coast quite nicely. However, if you're coming up to a roundabout or sharp corner, the car will automatically put some regen in to slow you down to an appropriate speed. So for example, you can slow down, you can set it to slow down to certain speeds on roundabouts, and you can do that through here, driver assistance. So I think it's driver convenience. Is it here? I can't remember, but there's a setting for it anyway. Driver safety. No, I can't remember. But yeah, you can set that so that it will change the speed at which it approaches roundabouts, that sort of thing. If you're coming up to a queue of traffic, it will slow you down. Now, it didn't do that once for Mrs. DL, but then we realised we hadn't turned it on in the settings. So you've got to find the settings and then turn it on, and then it's much cleverer. Mrs. DL was a bit traumatised by that, weren't you? So yeah, that's a handy one. Then also you've got iPedal. Now, I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook group that don't really know what iPedal is. Essentially, it's one pedal driving. You turn it on by just pressing and holding here. It's got 3 levels as well, and that's iPedal. I personally find it a bit difficult, coming from a combustion engine car. Round town, it's fairly handy, but I often find myself taking my foot off the accelerator and being brought to a screeching halt. So it's just preference really, what you get used to. But yeah, to activate it, it's press and hold the left paddle. To activate auto regen, press and hold the right paddle, and then to get rid of it all, you can just press and hold to turn it off again. So we go back to level 3. Now, passengers in the EV3 and EV9 may notice this little QR code here, and what that does, it takes you to a page that explains everything that's recycled in the car. So all of the materials inside the car are recycled. This, for example, is made out of recycled fish nets, that sort of thing. So that's just a bit of information on that, if your passenger's particularly bored. Now, another thing that the passenger can do if they're particularly bored is activate the relaxation seats while you're driving. The driver obviously can't, because you can't drive lying down, but the passengers interestingly can, which is quite cool, and something that Mrs. DL sometimes does if she's feeling tired and falls asleep. Now, a nice little feature that I haven't used yet, but I can see being very useful, is the brake disc cleaning. Now, with EVs, obviously we use the majority of the time we're using regen to slow down. Therefore, your brakes in wet weather can get a bit rusty, a bit dirty. So the car actually has a feature that allows you to clean them while you're driving. All you need to do is press and hold auto hold here. Do it when you're stationary or in park. Press and hold, and on the dash here, you'll get a little thing come up and say brake cleaning on. Now, what this will do is, as you're driving around, it will just touch the brake pads onto the discs to clean them off. You might notice a slight drop in efficiency because there's a bit of extra friction there. It's a bit like driving with the higher regen mode on. You'd notice it ever so slightly, but it'll automatically turn itself off then as well. But if you want to turn it off, all you need to do is press and hold auto again, and there we go, it turns off. But that's just a handy little feature, especially in winter, or if the car's been sat for a while, it'll automatically clean the discs for you. There's a few little interesting things about the Frunk here as well. So the first thing is that it actually has a weight limit of 10 kilos. So anything you put in there needs to be less than 10 kilos, and that's because it's essentially brittle plastic over the motor. So you want to, you don't want to break it really. And if you come in closer here, we've got a few little features. This thing here, I see a lot of people wondering what that is on the forums. That's actually an emergency release for the charge port here. So if your 12-volt battery were to die, you could pop the Frunk, which is actually independent of electrics, which I think is probably why they've done it. But you can pull that, and then you can charge the charge port here. If your battery was low, for example. These cars don't charge the 12-volt battery under 30%, I've read. So if you drop it down to below 30% and leave it for a long time, you might find that your 12-volt battery dies. It means you can't get into the car using the key. You have to then use the little key blade. The key ring's just fell off. The key blade here. And all you do is you can come around, you push on the handle if it wasn't already open, so obviously it wouldn't be, and then you can put the key in the slot there, pop the door open, the alarm will go off, but then you can get to the front, open the charge port manually and plug a charger in. If you're not anywhere near a charger, however, you can still resurrect the car under this panel here. Now if you take a close look here, you'll see that we have a fireman's helmet, a brake symbol and a battery symbol. Now this is an awkward panel to remove, so I'm not going to try because I'll end up breaking it, but underneath there is 12-volt battery terminals, a emergency cut-off and your brake fluid reservoir as well, so that's worth knowing, nice and handy. And another final thing about this Frunk is that actually it's deceptively big. A lot of people are saying, oh that's rubbish, that's tiny. What they don't realise is actually I've got quite an indent here, so you've probably got another 30% up into the bonnet here, so that means I could sit this book awkwardly like that and it would still shut no problem because you've got this extra recess in here. So it's actually quite big. So far we've got charging cables, a big book, tyre mobility kit, but you probably could fit a decent one. You probably could fit a bag of shopping in there if you were really weird. But utility-wise, if you wanted to carry some tools, that sort of thing, that would be an ideal thing to put in there, as long as obviously it wasn't over 10 kilos. Because, like I said, this just is all just plastic, so I think Kia think if you overload it, you could damage bits. I don't know. But, yeah, 10 kilos is the maximum weight in the Frunk Kia. Now, another nice feature with this key, even if you don't have the GT Line S, which will drive itself on the key, still fairly useful. You can press and hold the unlock button, and all windows will open. So, there we go, all windows will open. And then obviously to close them all again, and this is handy obviously on a nice hot day. If you're walking up to the car, perhaps you haven't gone onto the app and pre-started or pre-scheduled the aircon to come on, or perhaps you don't want to use the battery to do so, then you obviously can open them all. And then just press and hold the lock button, pause it to lock up again. That'll also close the sunroof if it's open as well, which is handy. And interestingly, the key actually gives you a warning when windows are open when you leave. It tells you, which is not something I've ever had on the car before. Makes total sense. How often do you walk off and you've left the window open and it rains? So, or is that just me? Maybe. But yeah, that's something that's nice and easy. And then another little thing, if you come to the back of the car here, on the back seat, so you can see, I'll wind down the windows using the key. Is that we have here some little slots for the seat belts to go in. So there's one here, slot it in there. The idea is that when you put the seats down, it doesn't catch in here when you put them back up. So how many times have you gone and got in the car when they've had the seats down and they've been, the seat belts been stuck behind there? It just drives you mad. So yeah, this is handy to say the least. And then final, I'll probably do the last one of the video, or this part of the video anyway. I think we'll do, there's so many nice little features on these cars that we'll probably do a little series of these anyway, so make sure you subscribe for those. But under the floor here, we've obviously got the adjustable boot floor. So for those of you who don't know, you can drop it down or lift it up, depending on your preference. If you want a nice flat load bay, when you put the seats down, then you'll need to have the floor up, otherwise you get a little step. Underneath the floor here is this big tray. Let's take the floor out so you can see it. Now what you can do is actually remove that tray entirely, and it gives you a lot of room underneath the floor to put stuff. And I'm actually considering that myself, because we got given this car care kit, which I suppose I could put in the shed, with the car, but can you imagine how much space you'd have if you didn't have this polystyrene stuff in the way? I suppose they probably put it in there to stop it rattling around, but you know, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, so this load cover, just what I remember, has a max load of 60 kilos when it's in the upright position. So with our two dogs, Otto and Wilbur, Golden Retriever and a Labrador, they'd be 60 kilos on here, so we'd actually probably have to run it in the lower setting. We do that anyway to give them the extra headroom, but yeah, it's just something to consider. More useful if you have it in the lower thing anyway. And obviously we've removed our bar here, our parcel shelf. Limited privacy really, especially if you've got privacy glass as well, but also eats into the boot space quite a lot for the dogs, so probably lose about that much boot space here, because on the Korean cars the seats can recline, which is why there's that weird gap. But yeah, overall this car is just full of brilliant little features that will really make your life so much easier. It's just been fabulous, and you know, you can even close the boot on the key. It says, there we go, which is nice. And it's just designed to make your life so much easier. And then, for example, here we've got a bit of space that we can move back on the driveway. Now this is going to be a test of Mr. Thiel's trust in the Kia, because she'll squirm, because we've got a nice sheer drop here, and the car will detect it. Using the key, we can reverse it back. Goes nice and slowly. There we go. She doesn't trust it. Ultimately, I'm in control, but it won't do something that is going to end up with the car being smashed up. So it'll, yeah, it's excellent. But We're going to do a mini series, like I said, on these, doing all the features, car wash mode. We'll show you all of that sort of stuff. So to test it, so you don't have to, and so you know what to expect. But yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for plenty more of the Kia features, and we'll see you next one. Cheers.